So apparently the internet just hates Pokemon Legends ZA. What's up guys, Nintendo Jab here, back with a brand new video. And yeah, everything that I have been seeing online about Pokemon Legends ZA, it seems like this has just completely fell flat for so many people. We were expecting a lot, obviously. We got that initial announcement trailer like a year ago or something like that. And then this past Pokemon Day on February 27th, we finally got our first look at actual gameplay, you know, the graphics, the art style, all of that stuff. And it left many people very, very disappointed, to the point that now Pokemon, you know, commentary channels, even non-Pokemon commentary channels, like huge people, you know, Penguin Zero, for example, have made videos talking about their disappointment with Pokemon Legends ZA. I do agree with a lot of the criticism that a lot of people have, not just with Legends ZA, but with the Pokemon franchise in general. There hasn't really been that much advancement in terms of, you know, the art style, the graphics, the overall performance and stuff like that. There hasn't really been that much of a, you know, generational leap, so to say, over these last 7 or so years that we've had Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were highly controversial games, arguably one of the most controversial games or entries, I should say, in the Pokemon franchise ever. And it kind of feels like Pokemon Legends ZA is kind of headed in that direction. To give credit where credit is due, what we've seen so far from Legends ZA, it does look like a noticeable improvement, at least in my opinion. Again, this is still very early. More likely than not, this game isn't coming out for like at least another 6 months. They did mention late 2025 and stuff like that. So there's still plenty of time for them to actually refine this game and all that. But even just moving on from the actual visuals, which again, it's like its own topic. It could honestly have its own video. Moving on from that and going to some of the actual like gameplay direction and things that they have decided, it just kind of leaves me wondering, like, well, what are they doing? Because we do know right now, at least based off what they have revealed, the entire game takes place in Lumio City, which it feels like such a huge deviation from what Pokemon has always been since literally the first few games back in the 1990s. You've always had multiple cities to explore, routes. You've always had that, you know, adventure, that exploring, caves, dungeons, you know, all that type of stuff. And this game, it's again, based off of the information that they have revealed so far, it's going to be taking place entirely inside of a city. Even if they make this city really large, which to be fair, Lumio City is a pretty large city, of course, in Pokemon X and Y and stuff, it's still just a huge takeaway from what we have been conditioned to with Pokemon for the last 30 plus years. It just feels really weird because the previous Pokemon Legends game wasn't confined to, you know, one specific area. Obviously you had multiple areas to choose from, all based in, like, you know, the ancient version of the Sinnoh region, of course. And so you had different biomes, you had different areas to explore. And again, this one is just taking place, you know, in Pokemon's version of Paris City. It just feels kind of weird. And another criticism that I've seen online that I actually kind of agree with too is the wild area. They're essentially bringing back that feature from Sword and Shield. If you guys remember, with Legends ZA, what they've shown so far, it kind of just looks like a slightly closed off street with like a couple Pokemon sprinkled in. It just doesn't give me the same wild area feeling that Sword and Shield did, you know, what was it, like 5 years ago now or something, 6 years ago now. I think it would have made a lot more sense if we were actually leaving Lumio City, and then outside of that, of course, there would be like large wild areas or wild zones, however you would like to call them, where you would actually be able to explore and see, you know, various Pokemon and stuff like that. I feel like that would have been a little bit better, but again, it sounds like everything is going to be contained in this one city, and it just doesn't feel like it's going to be really done properly. And based off what they've seen, or what I should say, what they've shown so far and what we've seen, it kind of reaffirms that opinion for me, at least. There's also been a lot of controversy going to the graphics and stuff. It in my opinion does look like a noticeable improvement over Scarlet and Violet, which I mentioned earlier, but it's not that much of an improvement. It still has the same general art style, in my opinion, or at least art direction, and it does seem a little bit more refined. But at the end of the day too, there is a lot of criticism there as well, with like really low quality textures you can see in various parts of the trailer. They just look very bad, like PS2 quality almost. And then on top of that as well, people pointed out things like the balconies. They're not even real balconies, they're like PNGs that are just on a flat surface. And you know, it just kind of feels like they're taking these sort of graphical shortcuts, but they're not taking them to actually accomplish anything else. Normally we would see this in games so that we could have, like, you know, great draw distance or really improved textures and details and stuff like that, but it feels like we're not getting that with Pokemon. We're just getting, you know, those shortcuts, and then we're not seeing any of the benefits, you know, where that power and stuff could be used for, you know, for better textures and stuff. We're not seeing that with Pokemon. And I've seen a lot of Pokemon fans defend this too, saying, well, this is a, you know, this is a late generation Switch game. It's obviously going to look better on Switch 2 whenever it eventually gets a patch or even like a full Switch 2 version or whatever it is. But there's still plenty of other examples that you can point to, both Nintendo and third-party games, that look better than Pokemon Legends ZA currently does, and they still, you know, they're still able to accomplish it on the Switch hardware, right? We have The Witcher 3 on the Nintendo Switch. There's no reason why that game should be able to, you know, be possible on the Switch with the graphics that it has, and Pokemon Legends ZA can't have a balcony. It has to be like this, you know, low texture PNG that's just on the wall to make it look like there's a balcony. There's plenty of Nintendo examples you can use too, right? Xenoblade, for example. You know, there's Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, both. There's a lot of other games that are able to accomplish better graphics, and it just feels like Game Freak just is not with the times. And trust me, I'm not someone who focuses on graphics or anything like that. I mean, the Nintendo Switch is my most played console for the last few years. Obviously, if I cared about graphics a lot, it would probably not be the Nintendo Switch. But at some point too, like, you kind of got to be a little bit modern. You kind of got to be with the times. And it feels like we don't really have that much of a difference, you know, with Pokemon, at least compared to the previous one and stuff. I'm definitely not advocating for like super realistic graphics in Pokemon or anything like that. But again, you know, the art style could definitely use some updating, and I feel like there's just shortcuts being done that just don't really make sense. There has been some gameplay changes too. They did showcase that, you know, it basically doesn't look like it's fully turn-based now. It looks like there is going to be things like cooldowns on abilities, the ability for your Pokemon to actually dodge attacks. This is obviously a noticeable improvement to the Pokemon formula. It is something that is different and new. It is kind of similar to something like, you know, the anime, for example, where you always have Pokemon dodging attacks and stuff. So that's pretty cool to see. But at the same time too, it kind of feels like that's more of like a quality of life change than an actual like next generational leap, which again, I feel like Pokemon is missing. I feel like we get these like little quality of life changes, but it's still like, you kind of look at it as like, well, this should have kind of been there the entire time, you know, like it's something that has been established in other Pokemon stuff for years and years and years, right? With the anime, of course, and it's now just barely coming to the games. It feels like we just get these small incremental upgrades sometimes, and a lot of other times we get these big massive changes that aren't really well received. There is also a lot of hype around Pokemon Legends ZA because of the return of Mega Evolution. For some, this is going to be the first time they've ever actually experienced it. For others, of course, this is going to be the first time being able to actually utilize it on Switch. Well, except for the Mega Evolutions and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, of course. But yeah, it's a cool thing. Don't get me wrong. I like Mega Evolutions a lot. It's one of my favorite gimmicks and stuff. But at the same time too, it kind of feels like we're just, you know, they kind of threw something in there that's like, here, you guys have been asking for it for a while, you know, this is something we did in the past. Doesn't, again, feel like a next generational leap or anything. Kind of just feels like we're getting stuff that either should have already been in there or that they've already done in the past. And I mean, they're probably going to do new Mega Evolutions, to be fair, which is going to be really cool to see. There has been leaks about that and stuff like that, and based off that, it does sound pretty exciting. But for the most part, it's been done before. Let me know what you think about Pokemon Legends ZA down in the comments below though. Do you agree with a lot of the criticism, or are you looking forward to it? And if so, why? What is it that has you looking forward to this game? Very interested in hearing what you guys have to say, but with all of that being said, of course, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. I have a lot more Nintendo videos coming your way. And yeah, hopefully you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one.